and let's go. The air horn goes off, and we're off on ThursdAI, August 8th. Welcome, everyone, to your weekly AI summary news with a lot of energy. My name is Alex and AI evangelist with weights and biases. I'm joined here on stage by LDJ, a good friend of mine, often a co-host here, and Junyang, Justin Lin from the Qwen team, with announcements also as well. I see some I see some strawberries in the audience already, so we're gonna talk about those as well. It's been quite a week. I will say, and I said this kind of before we started recording, last week was insane. Last week, compared to everything that I did, and I've been doing this for more than a year and a half weekly, last week was insane. Insane enough that we had maybe 5 breaking news. We have state of the art on top of state of the art. The week before was also insane because we had 3 open source models breaking state of the art. This week was okay. Feels LDJ, I don't know, tell me. This week felt okay? Manageable? We could actually focus on work, I think.
Yeah, I feel like this week was pretty manageable, but who knows? There might be some breaking news from OpenAI.
Yeah, so far. Manageable so far to this point. All right, and we have breaking news. Technically breaking news, Junyang, because you guys just released this. So we're going to get to it once. Actually, no, before I do a summary, I think it deserves the breaking news thing. AI breaking news. I just love pressing this button. Coming at you only on ThursdAI. Only on X, on ThursdAI. And you guys know that there's no ThursdAI bigger pleasure of mine than announcing breaking news, but letting the folks who actually broke the news to come here and talk about them as well. Junyang, the floor is all yours. Please feel free to tell us what you guys just launched, which I think looks very, very cool.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Yeah, we just released Qwen2-MATH, a math-specific language model. Yeah. Previously, we have been building a large language model, general large language model, but this was actually our second time after Qwen. We are building a math-specific large language model, and this is our first try of a math language model, and we find that it is really, really effective. You can check the scores. We guys are actually a bit surprised. So just using 72B model, Qwen2-MATH 72B. So in the math evaluation, the data set math, it can achieve 84. Yeah. So it is outcompeting the general language model, just like Gemini, GPT-4, and Claude 3.5. I understand that they are general language model, not specifically for math. But we just find that the way that we build our training data set and post-training data set, and also our method, you can check a little bit about our methods in the blog. So you can find some RHF stuff. They are really effective. Yeah. And we find that they can actually solve some competition test problems, just some like IMO stuff. Yeah, we have tested like AIME, AMC, and we have checked some IMO cases, and we find that for some simple cases, it can actually solve the problem. I think its math is much better than me. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's it. Yep.
That's incredible. So first of all, just to recap, like super quick, this is a 72 billion parameter model. Could you speak about the license, do you think? Is this the standard Qwen license?
We actually released 3 models. We have 1.5, we have 7 billion and 72. And for 72, we are still using the old Qwen license. But for 1.5 and 7 billion, we are using Aug8 2.0.
Hell yes. That's incredible. That's awesome. And the 72 billion parameter model beats GPT-4 and Claude Sonnet as well on the math evaluation.
Yeah, I think it beats both of them. Yeah. For GPT-4, it's around 76, and Claude 3.5 is about 71. Yeah.
So just to tell folks about there's the task mathematics, like solving math problems, there's also the evaluation framework math as well. Zero shot at math. This model gets 84, beating GPT-4, beating Claude Sonnet, beating Gemini 1.5 Pro. Basically, all of the huge companies with billions of dollars foundational models, there's now an open weights model that beats them on this specific task of math. How do the 7 billion and the 1.5 billion perform as well? I see there's like a best performance to size ratio triangle that you guys posted.
Yeah.
Could you speak about this a little bit?
Yeah, you can also check the performance with our tables in our blocks, including a base language model and instruct models. I think you focus more on instruct models. 1.5 and 7 billion is performing quite well. And for 7 billion parameter model, its math can also achieve 80. So I think this is for the first time that a 7 billion model that can achieve 80. We find that even if we scale the model size, it is really hard to further increase the score. So for 72B, it is around 84. And I think it is really, really hard to achieve 90, but that's all we get for now. And a little bit surprising is that the 1.5B is out of our expectation. It is achieving 70. So we have done a lot of decontamination to check whether we have some contamination that we don't know, but we have checked it. We didn't find a problem. You can check the scores in our table for the instruct models. I think you will find it very surprising. Yeah,
that's very surprising. I'll just add that I'm looking at some scores. We've talked about Mistral releasing MathStral not that while ago, a month and a half. I don't know if you guys remember exactly when they released it. MathStral is a 7 billion parameter model that gets 56, right? 56 on this task.
This is insane.
This is insane.
What you said, Sonnet 3.5 gets what, 71, 72? This gets 70, and it's a 1.5B. I could run that on someone's watch, like for real.
I'm not pretty sure about the real performance with the 1.5B. Maybe it is a little bit small. I'm not sure it is actually overfitting, but we don't know. But for the 72B, we have checked cases. We found that it's really robust. 7B is also okay.
Yeah, I've used the regular Qwen7B before, so I wanted to ask: is this the same around the same architecture as the Qwen7B, and the work that you guys did is more on the data side that you were able to achieve this?
Yeah, we only work on the data set. We use the same architecture. Actually, we initialize the model with Qwen2-7B and also like Qwen2-1.5B, 1.85B and 72B. Yeah. Just initialize with the large language model and then train it with our newly constructed math-specific data sets. Yeah, this is what we did. I think the effort actually attributed to the construction of the pre-training data sets and also the post-training data set. Yeah.
Oh, holy cow. Good job, guys.
Yeah, incredible job.
Yeah, and also really Apache license too, so anyone can use the smaller ones. I love small models. Gonna be running this and this is it's scoring all of that without tool use. Yeah, so because we saw before that it was Numina math, they were getting to write some Python, and then it could solve Olympiad problems, but with using tools. This one is just doing it. It's just doing it raw. So once you pair it with tool use, it'll probably be even better. But yeah, this is pretty insane. This is next level.
Yeah, we have constructed a lot of data with the form of like chain of thought and also program of thought, but chain of thought mostly. And we find that it's actually very effective. And for the post-training, we have done a lot with rejection sampling to create a lot of data set. Yeah, create a lot of data. So you have a lot of data sample so the model can learn how to generate the correct answers. Yeah, chain of thought is very effective. Yeah.
That's crazy. Junior, what's the point of a specific model versus a general model? So now you have this data set. Couldn't you like roll this into a bigger general model for, I don't know, Qwen 2.5, whatever? And that would perform as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, this is our side project for our general large language model for the math-specific large language models. We built this model for the purpose of synthetic data, actually, because we think that it is really hard to, crawl enough like mathematics specific data and put it into general language model to really increase its capability. We think that if we can really build an expert model in mathematics, so we can use this model to generate more synthetic data because it's capable of solving hard problems. So you can get some data where it is very hard to get from the internet. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so this is a specific model, synthetic, and because it's Apache 2 license, at least for the 1.5 and 7B, folks can also generate synthetic data as well. This is incredible. Lisa,
just
go ahead.
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, since this is based off of the 7B, would it be possible to generate a LoRa? I'm going to give it a try, or is it going to be too different to find the mask that applies on top? I don't know. I think because I already use 7B, like I've used it just for random stuff. If you could just generate a LoRa and I can just switch to math out of that would be cool. Or is it just like way too overtrained and has changed a lot? I'm not sure. I'm just throwing out the idea out there. But
yeah, so your question is about how we train the model or whether you can use LoRa to fine-tune the model. Yeah, I'm not sure about the question.
Oh, I meant to generate a difference between the regular Qwen 7B and the math Qwen, and to save only, let's say, the mask on top, and then it would be a lot faster to switch in between the two on a low powered device, I was thinking.
Oh yeah, I'm not pretty sure about that. Whether you can, I think you are going to combine it to when you are doing math task, you would like to switch to things like the math model. I'm not pretty sure how to do it, but for the fine tuning, you can just train it just like it did with Qwen2-7B or Mistral. Yeah, things are quite similar. Yep.
All right, gonna be trying out. We'll post anyway. But yeah, this is pretty amazing.
This is
we
great.
just got more toys that we don't have time to play with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is great. Julian, thank you so much for coming up. And obviously, a huge shout out and kudos to your team who worked on this as well. So hopefully they'll hear this. You guys are releasing incredible models and putting up in open source, which we always appreciate. Folks in the chat or folks who are listening, please give us like a clap emoji as a reaction for the Qwen2-MATH that are now state of the art in math in open source, and not only in open source, right? You're getting like probably the highest scores in this math tasks, it looks like. If I'm not mistaken, this is state of the art on at least this math task. What other? There's also Minerva Math. There's other Olympiad Bench. There's College Math and MMLU STEM as well. I'm seeing like other evals that you've collected. And one last thing I'll ask you before we're going to do like a recap, and obviously feel free to stay here and we'll chat more about this, is that you only released the English version of this, Chinese version coming up soon, correct?
Yeah, because this is actually a test on how we build a math-specific model. So we just used English data at the beginning. But this month we'll try to build a bilingual one and later multilingual. Yeah.
Oh, I see. All righty. Folks, before I do a TLDR, I want to say hi to a friend of mine and also a great guest. We're going to talk about some stuff that we have together cooking. Hey, Mark, you want to introduce yourself to the folks? I think it's your first time talking here. I think it is.
Yeah, I think so. Nice to see you again, Alex. Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Sarufim. I'm an engineer. I've been working on PyTorch for the last 4 years or so now at Meta. I also spend a lot of time in online communities, and one thing I've been personally very excited about has been competitive coding agents recently.
So that's awesome, and we'll talk about some stuff as regards to this in a bit. So I think it's time for us to do a TLDR. Here's the TLDR of everything that we've talked about on Thursday, on August 8th, on ThursdAI. We started the show with breaking news from our friend Junyang Ling from the Qwen team at Alibaba. I love the Qwen team because they often time their releases on Thursday. So Junyang actually DM'd me before they dropped this. Qwen2-MATH 72 billion instruct is a new state-of-the-art open weights model that beats GPT-4 and Claude Sonnet and Gemini 1.5 Pro on math tasks. It gets a ridiculous 84 points on the math evaluation benchmark, 0 shot, which is quite incredible. They released 3 models there. They released the 72 billion parameter Qwen2-MATH, the 7 billion parameter instruct, and the 1.5 billion parameter instruct. We heard directly from Junyang what they did there. It's quite incredible compared to previous math-specific models like Mathstral from Mistral, for example, from like maybe a month ago. It looks like this 1.5 billion parameter beats that model like significantly, and that one was 7 billion parameter. It's not often, like lately it's very often that we talk about models that beat GPT-4, which is quite incredible, and I find it very exciting that like open source beats GPT-4 and this and this and this. This now looks like the best math focused model that you can use, and the licensing for the 7 billion parameter and the 1.5 billion parameter are Apache 2, and 7 billion parameter you can run on, Nistan I think mentioned, you can run on your smartwatch. Quite incredible, and the numbers it gets on these tasks are just mind-blowing. Junyang talked about decontamination efforts that they did a lot to make sure that none of these math problems went into the training set as well, and we had a long conversation, definitely worth checking out. And I love when breaking news happen and the folks who broke the news come and talk about them here live on ThursdAI. Is incredible. Also, we've talked about OpenBMB dropping a new vision model, a 8 billion parameter mini CPM version 2.6. It's a VLM that understands images, multi-images, and video. And because it's an 8 billion parameter, it can run basically on the phone. They actually have videos of it running on an iPad. It's incredible in OCR as well. And I've read out a few examples of videos that I uploaded and it captioned, and it's quite incredible. It's incredible because, again, we're getting a GPT-4 level vision model at 8 billion parameters. It's really hard for me to get used to say something like this. It's an open source 8 billion parameter model that you can use and probably fine tune for your own task, but you don't have to because it's general. It's really, really good at OCR. There's a benchmark they called OCR bench. This model gets 852 points, where GPT-4o gets 736. This model is better at OCR than Gemini 1.5, than Claude Sonnet, at least on this benchmark. Quite impressive. The folks at OpenBMB also, Junyang mentioned that they've used Qwen in some of this, so definitely worth checking this out. I will add the link to try this out in the show notes. Extremely impressive, like small models beating this. And I've tried a few videos on my own, and it was quite stunning. And we also talked about Biggie Smalls from our friend here, Nistan, that blew up on Hugging Face for the past week. I think it was one of the 8th maybe trending model on Hugging Face. Nistan set out just to play around, and then at some point he got to a point where he wanted to build the smallest, fastest that could possibly run on the smallest possible hardware. And folks here on stage were getting quite technical as to how this was possible, including a new optimizer from Eric Hartford from Cognitive Computation. And this model runs up to 330 tokens per second, which is ridiculous because it's not optimized hardware, but it's an optimized model. And definitely worth listening to this conversation if you're into that. And it was like a very illuminating conversation about optimizers as well. After the open source conversation, we went into the big companies and APIs section where we talk about everything big companies do for us. And basically anybody that serves an API. We started with OpenAI introducing a structured outputs in its API. Structured outputs is the ability for developers to provide a schema for OpenAI, and the API will return like a JSON structure exactly per that schema, which is something that a friend of the pod, Matt Schumer, said that they do with just prompting, and it works. OpenAI decided to train models better to actually comply to these structures with 100% accuracy, and this is what they posted on their thread. In addition to this, they also mentioned multiple ways in which they did this to their models, and in addition to this, at the end of that blog post, they said that this model is now 50% cheaper on inputs and 30% cheaper on outputs, or 33% cheaper on outputs, which costs now $10 per 1 million outputs compared to the previous GPT-4o model, which is again quite insane. We're getting 50% cheaper just without fanfare. We're going towards intelligence too cheap to meter. It's crazy. And also folks here on stage commented that this actual model, the new GPT-4o 2024 0806, is actually better in multiple benchmarks, not only for just structured output, in different other benchmarks as well, which is not often the case. Sometimes people are getting very excited about new models and then they claim they're dumber. On multiple benchmarks that are like lateral intelligence and different things that people mentioned, this model seems to fare better, including on Zebra Bench from AI. So definitely worth listening to that conversation as well. And shout out to OpenAI for lowering the price of this model by a significant amount, and also giving some developers what they want. We then had a little bit of a fun time speculating about some strawberries. I will not go into this too deep into the TLDR, but there has been a post from Sam Altman posting about strawberries, and then multiple people from OpenAI also posted strawberry-related themed images, and we tried to understand what this was about. And thanks to Yam and LDJ and some other folks, we went deep into the lore of the strawberry discussion on X. And if you're interested in some less factual reporting, more conceptual, trying to understand the meme sphere, this conversation is for you as well. We then also talked about Mistral. Mistral released a fine-tuning ability on their platform, so you can now upload your data into Mistral, and then you can fine-tune their best model. Again, GPT-4 beating level model, Mistral Large V2, which they announced a couple of weeks ago. Now you can actually fine-tune it on their platform and serve it via API on their platform. And they also announced agents. Agents in Mistral are not agentic loop running kind of agents like the ones that we talk about usually, like Aider and Crew AI. Agents for Mistral are more similar to something like GPTs for OpenAI or projects in Anthropic, where those are agents you as a user build. They have an agent builder, and I think over the API as well. You can share examples for few-shot prompting, and you can give a system prompt in advance, and you save this agent, and they deploy it via the API for you, and also to their like chat platform called LeChat. And then you can interact with this agent basically. It will just know and we'll have examples of the previous stuff that you said. So basically like projects in Anthropic. The cool thing about this is that they're planning to have a big potential with tool use going forward and different other things. But for now, their agents are more similar to the other examples. We also briefly covered Character AI's acquisition, executive acquisition to Google, which is not an actual acquisition, but Noam Shazir, the author of the Transformers paper, or one of the authors of the Transformers paper, is going back to Google, and Character AI is going to use Llama models for their characters rather than building foundational models for themselves. And we had a conversation about that as well. In this week's Buzz category, we had a friend of the pod for the first time here, Mark Serafim from the PyTorch team, and talked about the NeurIPS Hacker Cup that's been running for a long time, that there's going to be sessions with Mark and Wei from Microsoft and a bunch of folks from Weights and Biases and a bunch of other folks in the kind of code generation or code understanding LLM area, and just trying to solve very hard, difficult engineering challenges without necessarily agentic approaches. And definitely worth listening to this and joining the Weights and Biases platform, where just 1b.me/hackercup, where you can get caught up to speed and like up your level if you want to join this year. Very interesting conversation. Definitely, we're definitely going to talk about this a little bit more. And at the end, we had a nice conversation that, if you with Matt Schumer, that both of us geeked out basically on Cursor, which is a VS Code editor. It's a clone of VS Code that neither of us are getting paid by Cursor. We just love it so much that we decided to have a geek out conversation about this live, about their new feature called Composer. That's basically an agentic approach to multi-file editing. So if you have used Cursor and you haven't used Composer, listen to this. If you haven't used Cursor, strongly recommend to give it a try and listen to us geeking out about this, because this will boost your productivity. And also, of course, Biggest Smalls. Of course, Biggest Smalls. Nistan, maybe we'll start with this because this is in open source. So I think we'll just switch to open source. Let's go. Open source AI. Let's get it started. Oftentimes, the folks who are here on stage are also trending in multiple places. This week was Nissan's trending. Nissan, you were trending on Hugging Face, like trending spaces or trending models to download, correct?
It was more like I was just hacking around at it because I needed some tiny model for my OS. And so at first I was using Qwen2-MATH be, but I needed even smaller. So then I just ended up finding the smallest one. So yeah, a lot went in it and ended up with Biggie Smalls. So I'm in a public space right now, but someone just messaged me today, and apparently they're trying it out at the Large Hadron Collider because it runs so fast.
Wait, are you
They're
serious?
looking at
No way.
using Biggie Smalls for industrial equipment, like automation stuff. Yeah, someone that listens to the pod messaged me this. I don't know if they're joking. I know they are legit, but I don't know if they're just making it up.
Somebody who
But,
listens to ThursdAI
yeah.
works at Large Hadron Collider and is going to use Biggie Smalls.
Yeah. They've been working for like over a year and using GPT-4 vision to do industrial system safety, like the electricals and stuff. Like they have vision looking at them and seeing if like switches went off, or I don't know what goes on in there. Last took physics in grade 10, but they're using it. And yeah, it's a very tiny model. I think you can train a LoRa of it in 45 seconds if you want it, and you can do a full fine tune in about an hour. The code's all open source, and yeah, it's one of the fastest models that kind of sounds coherent or pretends to have a conversation with you. And the fastest that anyone ran it on a single CPU core on M3, people are hitting like 280 tokens per second now, and we might be hitting 300 with just these new optimizations. And once we prune it, we might hit, I don't know. I don't know what TPS, but it's pretty, this is pretty crazy what happens when you try and match the model, when you try and mold it to the hardware that it's on. And the reason it works so well on a single CPU core is because you remove a lot of the memory bottlenecks that happen when stuff's moving between cores, and you end up using all the cache for that one core. And that's what gives it like that insane, like completely insane speed up. But yeah, the code's all open source. I think it's also a great model for teaching. It uses mainly the Capybara dataset, which LDJ made, and the dataset is fairly clean. It's low toxic. There's not that much data in there for it to be toxic. So if you're like teaching kids or stuff, or you're an instructor, it's a very good model to teach people LLMs. There's something there for everybody. There's a whole new optimizer, so you can go from PhD to the starter level with just like that one piece of code. Just messing around with that.
That's crazy, man.
But yeah, maybe LDJ wants to talk a little bit about the data set.
I just also wanted to note that Niston and I were testing it on the M3 Max, and with 4 CPU cores there.
Wait, before you jump in and note, could you please introduce yourself to the folks who never heard you here on stage before?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. I'm in 8 programs. I'm a researcher in resident at Nose Research. I just did a bit of work with Niston on this model and testing it on different platforms. And I work a lot with synthetic data and LLM fine-tuning.
All right, and now to your note. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt LDJ's Capybara stuff. Capybara is awesome, but I just wanted to say that the model can get up to 330 tokens per second on 4 CPU cores using an M3 Max, which out of the box Llama.cpp, which I find insane. That you can run like in 330 tokens per second. That's like Grok speeds. It's very, very fast.
That's insane. That's absolutely insane. Niston, sometimes you was like, I think you threw, did you throw Biggie Smalls at the end there for last Thursday? Just completely at the end. And then, no.
Yeah, it was random. So I was trying to fine tune it. Like a lot of stuff went into this. One was the evolutionary model merging to make the practice side. And then it was LDJ's data set, which there's a lot of secret sauce that goes into making that and distributing the data the right way amongst different subjects. And then I kept fine tuning with different stuff. I saw that Eric here from Cognitive Computation had just pushed out a day before a new optimizer. Eric wants to talk about the new optimizer. So I just used that. And so that ended up making it way more coherent because it wasn't. So that's the thing. It's just like such a small dumb model that any optimizations, any new stuff you throw at it, you notice an improvement right away. And that's why it's good for teaching. But yeah, I just hacked together whatever the best little things I could find in the community And two of those ingredients are here. LDJ made the data set and cognitive computations made the optimizer. Yeah, I want to also let the LDJ talk a bit about it, and also next Eric, because there's a lot going on. This is a little model.
That's super cool. Cognitive. Go ahead, LJ.
Yeah, I was actually wanting to ask real quick, Niston, how much faster do you think it might be able to be if you did speculative decoding with something like 100 million or 200 million parameter model?
I have no idea. We're in uncharted territory. Might be able to push like 500 with their just themes optimizations. If you go to 4-bit and start smushing together their 2 4-bit operations into 8-bit registers, you might be able to hit. Oh, there's like hardware engineers trying to get it to work on FPGAs. No, there's a lot going on. We might hit 500. But I want to say I actually used Qwen2-MATH for this job first, and then it was fast, but I needed way faster. The main idea is that I just want one CPU core to do stuff in the background and no more than that. So the constraints breed creativity and depth. Yeah. So might go a little bit more. Might be the I don't know. But the funny thing is that that I think Eric was building this optimizer that trained Llama 405B so that it could run better with like smaller batches. So it could run better on like limited hardware. And I applied it like on literally the world's smallest model. So it's pretty hilarious that worked, and it worked well. So pretty excited to see what's gonna happen next. New optimizers, new hardware.
So Eric's also here on stage, but also the thing that I'm hearing that's incredible is that, like, everybody who's here on stage contributed in some way, and this is like quite honestly like insane to me. And also, Niston, I don't know if you already met Mark, but Mark, this is Niston, our like resident like a crazy hacker that does crazy experiments. Niston, this is Mark who works on PyTorch, and I'm sure that he has a trick or two that you probably haven't yet optimized.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment about the optimizer. It's called Grok Atom W, and it was basically inspired by the Grok Fast paper. And the idea is to teach the model to generalize. So instead of just repeating by rote, it actually is able to generalize on the task. And the Grok Fast is the accelerated version of that. And all I wanted to do was take that Grok Fast paper and make it accessible so that it can be in the transformer library, and it can be used by things like Axolotl for training models with very little overhead and resistance to get that going. And it's just a very fortunate occurrence that it was useful for Biggie Small right out of the gate. And so yes, that's true. I'm trying to use this for the bigger models. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Eric Hartford. I have founded Cognitive Computations, and I work on the Dolphin and Samantha models. And so right now I'm integrating it with Transformer Library, and soon hopefully to all your favorite trainers.
That's awesome. Thank you for coming up, Eric. And it looks like we have quite a quorum here on stage as well. But I also want to say hi to Yam. Yam, what's up? Welcome.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. You missed your friend.
I just want to say
you missed your strawberry friend here. He was here before.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Strawberry was here?
Yes, and then left. Not on stage though. So I don't know if that's a person or a GPT.
I do want to talk a little about the strawberry man. I've been following him for a month or two.
Not yet. We'll get there. We'll get there. This is going to be the second part of the talk.
Yeah, I just wanted to say about this topic, the thing about the optimizer, people just tell the audience that's a big thing, right? If it works well, it improves every model that you throw at it. So it's a huge thing if it works well. And I think all of us, like you said, we need to talk behind the scenes and just get to the point where we can infrastructure-wise implement optimizers that can be sharded well, because this is the thing that's stopping people from trying different optimizers on larger models, that with the parallelism and all of that, you can implement optimizers, but there is an implementation, and an implementation you can actually run at scale. And these are two different things. And I think this is something that stops many of these initiatives that have a lot of potential, especially this one. Seriously, the numbers are incredible. So yeah, I just want to say it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing. Yeah. So I just want to say something. I don't want to go too technical on this.
Oh yeah, you think we're not there yet already?
No. I'm just saying we can talk about this a lot. I just want to say that to everyone listening. Look, it's much more simple than you probably think. Go and look at there are minimal implementations of 0.3, for example. There are minimal for education purposes. Go and look them up. You will understand them, and it's very important, I think, just to spread this specific knowledge, because I think that optimizers research is just stuck because of this, just because people don't know how to approach it, the sharding part, the distributed part. So go and search it up. That's what I wanted to say, and let's not go too deep.
So I will say this. Because of the people here on stage, and because this week was not like a crazy news week that we have to get to everything, I like these discussions. I like the people who meet the people here on stage, and then like crazy, incredible things happen. And so, like Nistan said, biggest smalls happen due to a new optimizer thing, and Capybara, and initialized by Qwen, like all of these things. And now we have Mark here, also can chime in with like different suggestions. I love these discussions. We do have to move forward, because we've talked about Qwen a little bit, and we want to talk about OpenBNB as well. But I think that when we are able to have those discussions, I'm very welcoming of those, and I'm just like incredible. The community that goes around ThursdAI and talks about these things, I think there needs to be a place for this as well. So I think we're moving forward, folks, for the OpenBNB vision model, which is a 8 billion parameter vision model. That it's really a challenge to talk about vision models here, because you have to see their output and try them for yourself and not just trust us. That's one. And two, people are getting maybe used to very good vision models, because now all of the foundational models they use, GPT-4, Gemini, Sonnet, like all of these are like very good vision models. They see very well. This one is an open source 8 billion parameter model that understands images, multi-images, and video, and it could technically run on your phone. And I think that's insane. Maybe folks remember there's like a viral video of a toddler running around on like super speed, and I also use this for, I think I posted this. I use this to showcase Segment Anything 2.
Wait, you made the amazing Segment Anything 2 demo? I showed that to all of like, whoa! Epic crossover event.
The toddler one. I don't know if that's the one you're talking about.
Yeah, the toddler one with the holographic background.
Yeah, the toddler
to show off Segment Anything. Yeah. My mind. So,
thank you. What blew my mind is it took one click, or 2 clicks on their demo. So basically, I showed the original video of this to basically, for folks who are like listening to this, have no idea what N8 and I are talking about. There's a video of somebody who posted about their like 1-year-old toddler, and it's sped up like maybe 5x, so the toddler looks like he's running around. And I just uploaded this video to OpenBNB, 8 billion parameters. Yeah. This is the output. The video captures a young child's journey through an outdoor park setting. Initially, this is a video uploaded, not an image. Initially, the child seen sitting on a curved stone pathway beside a fountain, dressed in a casual clothing with green t-shirts and dark pants. As the video progresses, the child stands up and begins to walk around the paved path, moving away from the camera towards open grassy areas dotted with trees and benches. Child continues to explore different sections of the park, blah, blah, blah. It's quite ridiculous. Just the detailing and the specific detailing of progression within the video is quite impressive for an 8 billion parameter model. And we've been saying this, that like smaller and smaller models will be better and better at this. I don't think I've seen such quality from such a small parameter model. They obviously posted benchmarks as well. They claim that they beat GPT-4 vision level for 8 billion parameter model, which to me is incredible. They also do OCR very well, so you can upload videos of like tutorials, you can upload images. Another thing, if you guys remember a couple of weeks ago, I had the Apple Intelligence kind of like prompt. I had a video of me just like selecting Apple Intelligence waitlist on my iPhone. I uploaded this and also got a response that was like very clear, like this user is using the iPhone settings to do this, and this. And the model basically read all the text in this video and told me exactly what happens. And this is, again, 8 billion parameter model. So quite crazy. And I think that now we've gotten to a almost state of the art on multiple like vision benchmarks, Actually, yeah, there's a few benchmarks that I can like shout out. There's the OCR bench, which I haven't heard of before. This model gets the highest score on OCR bench based on what they posted. There's also the
852.
852 on OCR bench. Thank you. There's also the Open Compass. It gets the highest score as well. And then MMMU, which is like a massive multimodal evaluation, this gets almost 50. So this is a bit less than like the main models. But again, 8 billion parameters.
Sorry, but I think MMLU is also about like world knowledge, and it's meant to be like the equivalent of MMLU for vision.
Yep.
So I think obviously a smaller model is going to do worse on that. But like with the OCR stuff, that's more of just raw vision ability. And I think that's where it really excels.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to hear, thanks, Nate. I want to hear NIST and reactions because you've built like vision models before. Junyang, also would love to hear from you as you're seeing like this like size of models and you guys, you've built Qwen Vision before. Would love to hear your thoughts on like how this model performs this well on some of these benchmarks.
Yeah, we actually have some collaboration with OpenBMP. So you can find that this 2.6 is actually based on, Qwen2-7B. Yeah, they have done a lot of great job in building good vision data set. It's very impressive that they are using multi images and video and very impressive result. You can check the demo. You can find the performance. We care a lot about MMMU, but I think it is actually relying much on large language models. If they are using larger models to build their vision model, the experimental results will be much better. But this one is pretty good.
Yeah. So this is we've been saying this before, and listen, feel free to chime in here. That like sometimes vision models need bigger kind of logic model behind them to actually perform better. And this is just an 8 billion parameter model that performs very well. But maybe on the logic stuff, it may need a bigger brain behind this. But it still performs very well. I don't know if you had the chance to play around with this, but I gotta wonder what this model would look like on a 72 brain.
Yeah, and we've said this before a couple of months ago that, and I remember you Junyang, when you guys said you moved to 14B, and I tried moving Baklava to 11B, and it was performing better because it could get like more time to chew at the tokens. But I think what's happening now is the small models are just getting smart too. They can process the unit better. And for the audience, the way that these VLMs, visual language models, are done is you have the vision brain, like the VIT, or like the clip encoder, if you've heard that. And you have the language brain, which is either Qwen, Llama, Big, whatever you use. And then what you do is you train a little slice of brain in between them, of like silicon brain. It's called the projection layer. And then eventually the vision brain learns to talk to the language brain, and you end up with a VLM. And it's the same thing that they do for the newer voice stuff. It's the exact same thing. It's just that you have like your whisper or whatever your speech encoder is, and so this is how these work, and that's why when people say, "Oh, the base it was Qwen," is because it was a language base that's taking that vision data, which are just tokens, same as you have language tokens, like you have a vocabulary of tokens, and then it chews on that, and it digests it and it comes up with the right answers. Yeah. So what's happening now is that the smaller models are getting really good too, and I guess you don't need as big of a language model base to get better results, but those results would still happen if you went bigger.
Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, I just want to ask both for myself and people in the audience for everybody. I just said I don't have a lot of experience with vision language models, but I would assume that most of the jump in performance would be smaller when you increase the number of parameters, because I would assume that a lot of the power of the model comes from how fine the vision part is trained and the resolution of it to distinguish between smaller and smaller parts of the image. So I would think, I'm asking the people here, is this the case? Is this mostly about how the parameters in the vision language model, or do you actually see a large performance jump in using a larger base, for example, because I would just guess that it's the vision part. But you guys.
Julian, go ahead.
You can tile it. That's why you can tile it. But yeah, Julian, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you can use a small vision adapter, a small VIT. This is our experience. You can use a very small VIT and use a very large language model. It is good. We have tried Apple's DFN. It is a really, really great model.
Yes, sorry, just really quick. To Yam, you can put 4 images together. You can put 9 of them together. So in that case, I would guess just from common sense, a larger language base would help to understand tiling. And there's no real limit to how much you can go with that. Like you can put more tiles of smaller language models. There's a lot of work still to be done in the field.
Yep. And I think that with this, I think we've concluded the open source section of ThursdAI. We also had internal M to talk about, but I think that besides the Apache 2 and some synthetic data that they did, I haven't found anything like crazy interesting, nor state-of-the-art stuff. And we're approaching the 1 hour mark of our conversation. And we also have some breaking news after this. So for now, I think that at least I saw in comments that many people came in here for the strawberry or the strawberry discussion, but definitely for the strawberry count as well. And we're going to try to recap some of this craziness on X, though this is not our usual style. As you guys know, I like to report on what actually happened and not like speculation. But I think this is too juicy to stop, because for folks who are unfamiliar, we have a group chat behind the scenes for the speakers of ThursdAI, and there are so many strawberries in the group chat that like this is obviously impossible to ignore. So let's do a quick recap for folks who stepped in the middle. There's like almost 200 of you here. Let's do a quick just a reset of the space, and then we're going to talk about big companies and APIs and everything in between. And I think we'll start with this week's buzz before. So let's do a quick reset. So you're on ThursdAI for August 8th. My name is Alex Volkov. I'm here on stage with a bunch of experts in different fields, some correlating fields, friends of ThursdAI Pod, co-hosts, and it's been incredible so far. We talked about open source. We talked about Qwen2, which Jun Yang, the representative of the Qwen team, I won't say technically Chief Evangelist Officer of the Qwen team, announced live on stage, and they just launched it today. We also talked about OpenBMB, 8 billion parameter, incredible vision model that's probably state of the art, beats GPT-4 vision. It's quite incredible to me that we keep saying open source beats GPT-4, open source beats GPT-4, and it's not even a crazy thing to us. It's, oh yeah, sure, this thing beats GPT-4. And we also talked about Biggie Smalls from Nistan here, which is the fastest LM, the smallest, fastest LM that you can possibly run. And then there's a whole conversation here about how efforts of the folks here on stage and in the audience led to this model running at almost 300 and something tokens per second on single devices. And now
330 tokens per second.
330, I'm sorry. And now I think before we move on to talk about the big company APIs, which is like our next big segment, I will slide into this week's buzz. This week's buzz is a place or a category in ThursdAI where I talk about things that are related to weights and biases, the place where I work. I'm an AI evangelist with weights and biases. Weights and biases, for those of you who are unfamiliar, for folks in the audience, is the leading world ML experimentation tooling, and also up and coming and soon to be leading in LLM observability tooling as well, with our new toolkit called Weave, which you should try. And there's a course that I just launched on weights and biases course. You'll have this in the show notes as well. But this is not what I want to talk about in this corner. In this week's buzz today, I want to chat with Mark about our mutual work with Mark Sarufim from Meta and the PyTorch team, and also Wei from Microsoft, if I'm not mistaken, and some folks from my team as well. Mark, so basically the microphone is yours. Could you introduce the challenge and like what we're doing together and how folks can go in there?
Sure, yeah, thank you. I will say you're probably the first person I know who's pronounced like my name correctly in the US, so thank you for that. Okay, so here's the premise of the competition. Like basically, Hacker Cup is a very old competitive programming competition that's been going on for about 10 years. It sort of like has a cult following. You can see a lot of sort of communities like Code Forces where people solve like these really, really hard problems, and they do it for decades. Like basically, the best humans need about 4 or 5 years of dedicated training before they can like reliably solve the hardest problems. The reason why this challenge is interesting is because what we've observed is there was like a lot of buzz on Twitter around like coding agents that solve leet code style problems. And I want to argue that those problems are not very interesting because they're also solvable by Googling. Like basically the data is already there, it's leaked, and these problems are like, they're standard. I would also posit that this is why the main reason why a lot of Swedes really hate leet code, because at this point, it's not really a test of cognitive ability, it's more a test of like memorization. The right way to change sort of this dynamic is one, to make the problem significantly harder. This is why competitive coding is interesting. And two, not release the test set until the day of a competition. So basically, the way this is going to work is that the competition will, in Hacker Cup, will now have a human track and 2 AI tracks, one for open models and one for closed models. When the competition opens up, the humans will see a problem, they'll copy paste the problem into their model, they'll run it, and then they'll spit the output back out. Basically, none of those models will have access to this data. Our suspicion, at least if you use ChatGPT or Claude with chain of prompting, with linting, and with a human in the loop to solve problems, we've managed to solve one practice problem out of about 40 problems. And the interesting thing about a lot of these problems is that it's not like even they require a lot of code. Often there's a mathematical trick or an insight. One problem, we call it the dim sum problem, has a 2-line coding solution where no LLM open or closed has managed to solve it. So our goal here is to really push the state of the art of AGI, of competitive coding. And whoever wins this competition, in our opinion, will have a very commercially interesting model that can solve like very novel agents. And at this point, if a model does make a significant dent in this competition, I think people would need to acknowledge that LLMs can do a form of planning.
This is incredible. And you guys also organized a series of kind of like getting folks up to speed. And I would invite folks to also participate in those because I think you're speaking there as well, Mark.
Well, that's right, actually, yeah. So thanks to a lot of our friends at Weights and Biases. We approach this problem in 2 ways. One is it's obviously a community effort. And for context, last year at the New York LLM efficiency competitions, the winners were not famous people in the ML community. They were people that came out of nowhere. They did a very interesting effort with regards to data curation, and then they won. Similarly, I think what we're doing now with the Weights and Biases team is we're setting up about 6 lecture series where we're inviting some of the best people in the sort of in the code generation community. So you'll have people like Omar from DSPy, Ofer from the Sui agent team. Like we have folks from the Torch team, from Weights and Biases. So we really want to lift the floor, and that way people can, if they have an interesting take on this problem, we want them to participate as well.
So everybody's welcome. I pasted the link in the show notes as well. And obviously, if this is of interest to you and you want to participate in this Hacker Cup, and if you're going to New York, yes, even if you don't, I think this works via the Discord, right? Like you don't have to be there. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark.
Yeah, that's right. Basically, all of the competition is essentially going to be happening online, both Hacker Cup and participating in the Discord community. NeurIPS is more of a cherry on top. I think if I like Alex, you were there at the workshop last year, if I remember correctly. So hopefully there, the idea is that we would also invite interesting speakers in the code generation community. So if you are going to be in NeurIPS in Vancouver, you can come hang out. And if you are going to be one of the winners, we'll invite you to basically co-author like the workshop paper with us, where we synthesize the lessons from the best submissions.
So super cool, and I'm very excited to take a look at all of these incredible guest speakers, and I've added the link to the show notes as well. So if you're into like code generation, if you're into solving problems, all of this, definitely worth checking out. Mark, thank you so much for coming up. Feel free to stick around with us because we're going to talk about a bunch of other stuff going forward. This concludes this week's buzz though, because we have a bunch of other stuff to talk about. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Okay. So moving forward, I see you're trying to bait Strawberry back in. So before we get
the
to
expert, the expert in the field.
Yeah, the expert
trying to get the expert
in strawberries in the field. Before we get to the strawberry kind of debate, I want to super quick talk about OpenAI's structured outputs in API. So OpenAI announced a new approach, probably new models, definitely a new training for their model. They talked about how they actually achieved this. OpenAI introduces structured outputs in their APIs and also dropped prices as well. And so under the hood, they improved reliability for their models to match JSON schema, so developers can provide schema. I think I see Matt Schumer with us as well. Matt, a friend of the pod, often comes up and gives like incredible deep dives. Have you had a chance to play with the structured outputs yet? Does this affect significantly the stuff that you guys do? And do you want to give us a brief overview of how cool this is?
So you're actually going to be disappointed. Also, thanks for having me. I have not played with it. I've actually barely played with any of the structured output solutions pretty much anywhere. I've essentially found that with good enough prompting, you can essentially get what you want without needing to deal with some of this. And I was seeing reports that, for example, OpenAI structured output is quite a bit slower than their normal API.
Yeah.
So I personally haven't had a real need for it. Anything I can do with prompting, which is rare because prompting really is quite good for most of this stuff. You can use things like function calling, and for HyperRate, most of what we do in prod is based on fine-tuned models because the scale that we're at requires it. So we essentially just, if we need JSON, we just fine-tune the models to always use that format. Then there are things like JSON Former. That was, I think, a couple of years ago. That's interesting to look into. But personally, I haven't really had a need. It's interesting. I feel like a lot of what OpenAI has shipped recently has been very interesting technical solutions to problems that sort of exist, while not solving the bigger problems. That's at least my take.
All right, take taken. But I want to read out the kind of, so you basically say the same thing that they touch on. They say a lot of people just do prompting, and they actually have a comparison chart between prompting alone and the percentage of how much their model prompting alone adheres to a schema, not just outputting JSON, specific JSON, but like a specific schema. Schema defines like what type of fields, etc. And they said that even though their newest model was trained to understand the complicated schemas and how best to produce outputs for them, just prompting that didn't give them like the response they wanted. They only got 93% on their benchmark, and so they wanted to do a deterministic engineering-based approach, which we know in this field of LLMs, determinism is not something that's like a super easy to do. And so they did a constrained decoding approach, which achieved 100% reliability on structure. So if you pass strict equals true, while Matt, you're probably right, it's probably going to be a little bit slower for folks for whom this is like extremely important to get the same exact schema back all the time. And for many developers that develop with something like Pydantic in Python or with Node as well, with type Node as well. So they support in their SDK now this constrained decoding with schema providing. So that's super cool. Many people do actually want this. There's a few libraries that this is what they do, Instructor and TypeChat, I believe, and also Marvin. There's a few libraries now that folks don't necessarily need to use. An additional thing they announced during this blog post is that, oh, by the way, this model is now 50% cheaper. And it's like with no fanfare at the end, quietly, oh, this model is now 50% cheaper. What often happens, though, with these models from OpenAI that they release is that people get excited about them and they're like, oh, this model is exactly the same, but cheaper. And then folks find out that it's not quite exactly the same. And sometimes this model actually is like a little bit less good as well.
Yeah, I think it's also worth noting that there's a recent benchmark called Zebra Logic that a lot of people are looking towards, since it seems to be a pretty good proxy for reasoning in models. And Cloud 3.5 Sonnet was number one for a while, but with this new GPT-4O model, at least in the easy version of this benchmark, before it was about 10 or 12% gap between GPT-4O and 3.5 Sonnet. And now 3.5 Sonnet is still ahead, but GPT-4O version is now only like 2% behind. So it seems like they might have made some type of a significant reasoning increase to this new GPT-4O version as well.
That's from Allen Institute for AI, if I'm not mistaken, the Zebra Logic. And so you're saying basically this model now climbs higher. Oh, it's now at the top, right? The leaderboard evaluates performance across 4 key: reasoning, knowledge, math, logic, and code. And yeah.
In Zero Eval, it's number one, but in Zebra Logic itself, which is a subset of Zero Eval, at Zebra Logic, it's still, I think, behind 3.5 Sonnet.
Yeah. And go ahead and then Yam.
Yeah, I just wanted to back that up. I have my own personal benchmark that I have of lateral thinking puzzles, and I ran the new GPT-4O on that, and it scored roughly 5 to 10% higher than all previous models and outscored the previous version a ton. So, and these are like really hard lateral thinking puzzles that require like innovative reasoning ability. So I'm just really excited about that.
Wow.
Because I think they did make a breakthrough with reasoning.
Wow. All right. Interesting. They're not talking about like any specific kind of advances in the model itself. They are talking about they trained it to be better on structured output. But you're saying just generally on your tasks, on logic, it also performs better compared to other GPT-4s, right? Like GPT-4o from...
Yeah, the previous version got 0.7, and this new version is getting between 0.75 and 0.77, which is pretty big considering that. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's getting 1 to 2 more questions right.
Yeah, that's great. Yam, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanna add a little bit of background about the whole thing everyone is talking about. The thing is that we are at the point where there are many benchmarks or many tests, and there are models that are really good on this benchmark, but somehow people call it a big model smell. They are good on the benchmark and they look nice, but there is something that different models just feel a little bit better. And even the benchmark that uses humans to choose which model is better on the same prompt, even there we can't distinguish what the thing is. So what everyone is talking about right now is different type of tests that try to capture this very hard thing to capture, whether it's zebra logic or different logic or different benchmarks that people have on their own that they developed and are not releasing, because as soon as you release something and talk about it, the models learn somehow. The models somehow get better on it, and it doesn't capture the same thing. The feeling is still, the big model smell is still there. This is why you see all those new benchmarks that are wild and new and try to test very hard things. And so when a model gets really good on those types of benchmarks that no one saw except for you, it means something, because we all just want to get the ranking that aligns to the best way possible with the feeling that you have towards the model. So that's what everyone is talking about. And a big thing when you have a model that pretty much everyone agrees on benchmarks that are wild and there's no way it was trained on, or even not trained on, even was tested during training by the developers on. It's a big thing when a model gets better on this. So this is what everyone is excited about at the moment, and I think it's great. Yeah.
And I think it's absolutely worth mentioning that, like you said, there are a bunch of different evaluations that people don't expose to the internet. So these models can't learn on. And that's why we're trying to get as many folks from those evals and benchmarks to come in here and tell us directly. But also we're trying to collect as our vibes, feelings, we're trying to add by adding up all of those different ones. And some of the ones that I'm looking at as Aider.chat. Aider is a Mark, I don't know if Aider is a non-agentic kind of code writing agent, and they have a LLM leaderboard as well for code editing specific, not code writing, but code editing. And Aider has their own benchmark LLM that I've been looking at for quite a while. Sonnet is still the top one here, and this new model that's very close to the top, I think 98% correct edit format, which is great. And then also Big Code Bench, we talked with Terry Yu here on the podcast, and then Live Bench from Bindu Reddy and supported with Jan LeCun. So we're looking at a bunch of different leaderboards also to get a sense, to not just look at LMC Serena, for example. Any other comments on this before we talk about the other OpenAI stuff?
+1 for Zebra Logic. I've also found it when I was testing DeepSeek Coder that that benchmark reflected most accurately how smart the model was at solving issues. Just from a practical perspective, I've never looked at the data set. I've never ran the benchmark, but whenever I saw the rankings there, it fit with my anecdotal use as well.
We should get Bill in here to talk about Zebra Logic next. I'll reach out. Yeah, I have some friends in Allen AI. We should get Bill to talk about Zebra Logic here on stage. And Nate, go ahead and then we'll move on and talk about...
Yeah, I'll be really quick. I just wanted to shout out Aiden Bench. It's a really unique benchmark that some of you might have seen, and it's designed to capture the big model smell. It breaks the original GPT-4. Yam knows about this. From March, the original release, way over GPT-4o, and it basically tests the model's ability to give it a query, say, tell me an interesting story, give me an interesting fact about World War II, or summarize the Dark Ages. It tests the model's ability to generate novel answers that aren't like its previous ones and still make sense. And this ended up correlating to the ability of a model to have a lot of unique responses and to have an intriguing latent space and to not be hyper optimized to deliver one really, really clean answer. And it's very refreshing, and it uses an LLM to verify the model's answers are nonsensical and an embedding model to ensure that they're distinct. And I think it's pretty cool. I've attached the link below.
All righty. Thank you. Okay, folks, I think it's time to talk about some fruits and some. I think LDJ, I called you like yesterday because I haven't caught up like to all the drama, even though not even drama, but I maybe I'll do the preface. Yesterday, Sam Altman posted an image of. He said it's a nice summer day in the garden, and this was an image of strawberries, and then the internet freaked out. LDJ, could you tell us why the internet freaked out? What was going on? What's so special about this image?
Sure. So I guess for some of the lore, I think I actually put something in our group chat that I'll just scroll up for and reference that real quick.
Yep.
But essentially, there's been leaks going on for a while, or alleged leaks, of course. Like you never really know if they're true or not until the company ends up confirming them. But there were some rumors over the past few months, I think by articles published by Bloomberg, Reuters, the information that are all generally considered pretty reputable, saying that Q star is now part of something called Strawberry, or now has been renamed to Strawberry, something of that sort, and is on the cusp of having a new type of reasoning breakthrough or a new level of reasoning that wasn't previously capable with current models. And this is just in the past few months. And prior to that, of course, there's a lot of rumors and talk about something called Q star, which also still vague, but also around that same line of being better at reasoning, being better at math and things like that. So as soon as Sam Altman, just yesterday, I believe it was, he posted a picture of a bunch of strawberries and everybody's going wild, and he almost never posts on Twitter. So that's a big thing. And then a few hours later, you have Varun, who's also rumored to be an OpenAI employee. He's posting
I think confirmed.
a picture of...
I think confirmed at this point.
I think so. I think he's like still kind of pseudonymous or something, but he posted a picture at a party, it seemed, or a gathering with people. And there's just a table with a pile of strawberries on top of it. And another OpenAI employee said that he's at an OpenAI dinner and posted a picture of a plate with just a single strawberry in the middle. And so it seems like they're at a strawberry themed party or something, and they're alluding to a lot of things.
And so what could they be alluding to? Yam, what do you think?
Okay. Well, there is a little bit more to the story. Just
please give us
the conspiracy
give us more. Give us
conspiracy theories started a year ago. First, I don't want to spread conspiracy theories. I had a little bit of time a couple of hours ago, so I wrote a thread. I don't know about what happened last night. Part of look, it was funny. Look and just look at everything that happened. And I don't want people to think that anything of this is more than just, I guess let's have fun and conspiracy theory. That's first. Okay, I don't know anything. Yeah. The thing goes like this. Last year, at the end of 2023, there was an incident that we don't really know a lot about Sam Altman leaving OpenAI, then coming back, and Ilya is disappearing for a couple of months later, and everyone started, conspiracy theory started. What did Ilya see?
Yeah.
And it started there. And so there were rumors and leaks about a new algorithm or training method or whatnot that heavily improves models reasoning and capabilities and so on, called Q star. We know nothing about it except that it might exist. Okay, that's the thing. Now, a couple of months later, and there were many conspiracy theories about what is going on. We don't really know. Okay, it's not a good secret that OpenAI are working on better models, future models. This is what they do. It's not a secret. Okay. The thing is that we had some major publication calling it code name Strawberry now. And yesterday, not only we got some, strawberry theme stuff, we also got from pretty, confirmed sources at OpenAI that I think that a new model is going live, Strawberry is going live, and we had a new account popping out of nowhere talking about strawberries a lot, like a lot for a human, a lot. And things started to explode for a couple of hours. It's everywhere. That's in general the story.
For us in our bubble, and this account joined our space in the beginning a little bit. which I was just like, I won't try to summarize everything, but before I get to LDJ and then Nate, I will say, Yam, your position was that this account potentially could be run by like an agent that's using this like new model and this is super advanced, right? This is the game we're playing. This is the kind of the assumption.
Look, I don't know. I'll start by, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
All I'm saying, and what got me to this thinking, is that it was a little bit too much for a human. It was way too much in terms of volume. And also aligned with people in OpenAI saying the project is going live, we're starting, and the account saying it all the time, again and again and again. So I just thought, and maybe many other people also got to the same conclusion, wait, it might be a model because it's everywhere. Thousands and thousands of tweets. Come on, what human can even do this?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just started to interact with it. And I don't know, I just posted everything in a thread if you want. I don't want to spread conspiracy theories. Probably Strawberry, the real one, is a good model anyway. So that's my take.
Here's my super quick, very logic-based reaction to this. Given that whatever account joined the space and then reacted to something I said with my voice, I don't know if they have the technical ability to pipe this sound to a model while also learning how to join a space on X. I don't think that that's like super straightforward via the UX. So it feels like a person just like saying, hey, I'm just like LARPing, but we'll see. LDJ, you wanna comment, and then let's comment on the Strawberry a little bit.
Sure, yeah. So I remember now that there is actually technically some type of confirmation we have of something called Strawberry OpenAI, because there's a lot of people that kind of stock the subdomains that are registered under like the main openai.org or openai.com main domains. And within those subdomains, there is some registered that say things like Strawberry and the name of it, and say things like Straw, CUA, and CUA is usually an acronym used for computer using agent, which basically, in other words, means something autonomously using a computer.
So something like something that could use Twitter, for example, the UI to do stuff.
Oh, it actually, yeah, I didn't even connect that, but theoretically, yeah. And these subdomains that include the word straw or strawberry within them, there's 2 or 3 of them that have popped up over the past 2 weeks. And Bloomberg and or Reuters reported over the past 2 weeks that on specifically July 9th, OpenAI held an all-hands meeting where they actually demoed or demonstrated some type of Strawberry capabilities to all the employees, and I guess maybe announced their progress on the project. And on that same day, there's a subdomain registered on that same July 9th day that says large lang demo -external. So there's like a lot of things coinciding there and confirming at least a lot of the things coming out of Bloomberg and Reuters.
So we have a leak from Bloomberg. We have some OpenAI employees. We have some LARPers, but definitely yesterday, either the folks are playing into this meme, but we definitely have like Sam Altman. We have a bunch of folks from OpenAI jumping in on this, and like doubt that this is the meme. Like it seems that it's all but confirmed that like at least something is happening. Though we do remember Sam Altman sometimes does troll. He went into Reddit and said AGI was achieved internally, and then basically
yeah.
We remember that the person has the ability to troll. Like we remember this from previously. However, a lot of times it's passed since then, and this is also like more folks confirming with Strawberry pictures. So at least something is happening. Now what? We'll see. And Nate, go ahead. What's your take on this? And then Nista, I would like to hear you your take.
Yeah, I've been following the Strawberry guy for a while, weeks ago. And August 1st, he was active. He was going crazy, yapping about strawberries, pinging ChatGPT, begging Sam Altman to release something. Nothing happened. And he goes right back to the grift. He's been tweeting out strawberries for weeks. I don't know when he first showed up on my feed, but I've been around him for a long time. And this account, what it does is it constantly hypes up a hype cycle, pings Sam Altman. ChatGPT responds randomly occasionally, but then nothing actually happens. So at least my conjecture is this account's probably a LARPer or someone who's pretty desperate for attention. And then Sam A might be engaging with this account to generate actual hype for Strawberry, which is probably a real thing. So I think then again, that's just a hypothesis, but I doubt the account is truly like a legitimate source of leaks or like a secret AI model, because it did the whole Strawberry shtick before a week ago, begging for something to be released. It was wrong, and then it moved along.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know. LDJ, go ahead. Read out the history super quick, and I think we can move on. I think we've speculated enough.
Yeah, so here's the brief summary of the timeline of reports from Reuters and the information from Bloomberg. So around 2021, it's allegedly said that Project GPT-0 started internally at OpenAI, and that involved a couple of employees, and it's named after AlphaZero, which is focused on being able to scale up inference time compute for better problem solving, and as well as hopefully allowing self-play and reinforcement learning, things like that. Then a few years later, apparently that GPT-0 became Q-Star, with more advancements being made. And then Sam Altman said that some type of breakthrough was made around November last year. He said this publicly. And then apparently in these past few months, it's become something now known as Project Strawberry. And now there's other people involved. And one of the original people said to have been involved, Jacob Pachoki, for Q-Star. He's now chief scientist of OpenAI after Elias Sutskever left as well, which is interesting. And yeah, that's pretty much all the details of the timeline.
He's one of the early people or co-founders as well, right? Jacob? Or Jacob?
Yep.
Yam, go ahead. Thanks, LDJ. All right, folks, I think we're moving on forward to actual reporting and not speculation, because we have a few more stuff to talk about, specifically around one thing I want to mention, because I think that this is going to be the future, and I want to hear thoughts super quick, is that DeepSeek, the folks from DeepSeek in their API introduced something called content caching on disk, which significantly, if you don't know what content caching means, and we've talked about content caching after Google I/O for a little bit, the problem with large language models, especially with agentic and constantly repeating queries, there's a lot of repetitive inputs, especially with the chat. Every time you send the chat query, the model basically gets all the previous chats. As an agent loop runs, the model gets all the previous chats in every new request. Basically, the context window grows, and this leads to unnecessary computation. And then DeepSeek basically implemented caching. Caching is a known problem in software engineering world, but here in the LLM world, the first time I heard about something like caching was productionized caching was from Google. They said that they're going to introduce this and lower costs, but you have to opt into this. DeepSeek implemented this kind of automatically, and when you hit the caching on their end, you basically get a 90% reduction in price. Cache miss costs you 14 cents, which is still ridiculously cheap. I think 14 cents is one of the cheaper APIs out there, if I'm not mistaken, for this level of intelligence. 14 cents per input tokens, per M tokens, per million tokens. If you hit the cache, it's going to be 0.14. So it's going to be 1.4 cents if you hit cache per million tokens. 1.4 cents per million tokens if you hit the cache. And they claim that 90% of the back and forth conversations are just you bypass recomputation, because they analyze what you sent, which is quite incredible. I haven't played with this yet. I haven't played with DeepSeek API too much. I just played with it a little bit. I want to hear maybe from Nistan and Matt as well from you. I want to hear if just thoughts about why isn't everyone doing this, and will this become an industry standard?
In a way, they are, but it's not complete. There's a little bit more going on here with how DeepSeek do it, because DeepSeek always does some next stuff that people don't even realize what happened. Cloud projects, if you use Sonnet 3.5 and you use projects, is also part of context caching. And when you hear this in combination with speculative decoding, that's also a form of KV caching. So DeepSeek is putting together speculative decoding and the KV cache. Now, why does this matter? Why is this any good? You can also do this on your own. You can do this on your own with Llama CPP. And the simplest way you can implement this on your own is you have a very long conversation. Let's say you had your lecture. If you're in school, you had your lecture. What you do is you preload that in a cache file. And you can do this on CPU. By the way, I'll always show CPUs. Yeah. And so now you have your 30,000 tokens of your professor talking or whoever was talking. And then you save that on disk. So there's going to be a couple of gigabytes of that context. And then you start off every conversation from that, and you don't have to recompute it. So you don't have to wait again, because it takes a while for 30,000 tokens to actually process. Yep. Whereas loading it from disk is free. DeepSeek went a step ahead in this, and also did caching for other queries. So they've done this in a more advanced and dynamic way, but it is essentially quite similar to how cloud projects works, where you add in a bunch of papers or a bunch of code. And everyone should be using it this way.
Yep.
Everyone should be using LLMs this way.
Interestingly,
it's pretty big deal. Yeah.
The Gemini kind of approach is that you opt into this and you decide. Where what I like about the DeepSeek's approach is like it's automatic. Once they detect the same input tokens, they just automatically like turn on the caching and they read from disk, which is super cool. Matt, if you want to chime in on this as well, feel free, because there's price significant here and you guys are running a lot of millions of tokens super back and forth.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to use it personally, but this is one of the innovations that I'm actually really, really excited about for a few reasons. But the main one that I really think about is, for many things, not all, for many things, I think we're moving away from this sort of era of fine-tuning to scale and fine-tuning to get really, really great results for a specific task, and towards many-shot prompting. As an example, some agent tasks that we've tested, you can fine-tune a model on 1 million examples, 1 million good examples, use a ton of compute to do that, go through the complexity of that, the complexity of then serving that fine-tuned model as opposed to a prompted model. Or you can show, let's say, Gemini 1.5 Pro with its really massive context window, 100 examples or even less. And often what I find is that the prompted model actually does quite a bit better than the fine-tuned model. I think there are many possible reasons for this, but whatever the reasons are, that's powerful. And if you can cast all those examples, suddenly you have the ability to just do like fine-tuning on the fly, but it doesn't cost you all that much extra to actually serve. So I think it's actually quite powerful. I'm hoping that this trend continues and more providers start to add this, because it would make developing really robust and really reliable and really good LLM applications that aren't just, one-shot or few-shot prompts really possible for the first time. So that's what I'm really excited about here. I think there are definitely other really interesting things like your entire code base in there, that sort of stuff. But for me and how we use LLMs in our products, I am very, very excited about the idea of like, instead of gathering 1 million examples and doing that fine-tuning process and going through the hell that is, it's not fun. Instead, just saying, okay, let's curate 100 gold examples that we know are fantastic and show the model the few things we really want it to do really well. And suddenly you have something that's better than if you fine-tuned it, and it's cheaper and it's faster and you don't have to worry about managing infra. I think that's quite powerful. So super excited about that.
I'm with you completely on this, because we've talked about long context versus like RAG or anything like this. And one of the things that always came up was cost and speed. Cost and speed were like the two things that people talked about. RAG, obviously citations and everything. This is the first thing that starts to show that long context can still win potentially down the future. And the two things that were going for RAG, like speed, etc., this now directly attacks those kind of arguments against long context, against using those 100,000 examples, for example. Because again, if you cache all those back and forth, and they are immediate and they cost 1 cent per million, 1 cent per million token. I can't believe I'm saying this. Like literally, I can't believe that these words are coming out of my mouth. It costs 1 cent per million input tokens to do in this caching if they're cached. Then it's basically nothing. Like it's basically, you don't even count this.
Yeah. I will say for RAG specifically, when we're talking about the traditional form of RAG, not like whatever people are doing today with it or whatever they're calling it, even if it's not actually RAG. But when I say RAG, I mean like pulling in lots of data to answer questions based on the data. I still think the models have a little bit of a way to go to be able to use their context effectively enough to make inferences based on multiple different positions in the data. But when we're talking about things like, let's just say an agent type task, like some of the stuff we do, you're not needing it to remember every single little thing in the data. You're needing it to understand how to do something. And that's what the context window is good enough for today. So very much spot on with everything you're saying. I think it's going to be huge.
And I'm hoping that more folks will implement this. And Nistan, you're probably right. Like it's implemented behind the scenes for many folks. Like I'm hoping that more folks in the API provider layer will expose this to developers. And a quick comment on this, and we're going to move on from caching to another topic super quick.
Very quick, yes. DeepSeek is especially well suited for this because their model uses, I think, multi-head latent attention. Taxis knows more about this than I do. But what it is basically they can store the task tokens using lower rank vectors than most other models. And that can result in much less cache space for many more examples. And that's why they can serve their caches so cheaply.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's awesome to know. Thanks. That's great.
One additional thought, actually, total side note here, but I could see actually within the next couple years, some major model providers start to enable fine tuning, but it's actually this under the hood. And they may not explain this to the user. Maybe they will. But I wouldn't be shocked if we started seeing like actual model providers saying, look, fine tune your model, and you upload the data set and you press go, and it's not actually doing any weight updates. It's just essentially caching all the examples.
That's interesting. I think you did a great segue to the next thing that I wanted to like super quickly mention. And speaking of like names that people call things, and those are not the actual things, Mistral came out with a quick update of their fine-tuning system. So now you can, the model that came out, was that a week ago? Was that 2 weeks ago? I don't even remember. I think 2 weeks ago. Mistral Large V2, which is also GPT-4 beating model on some metrics. That model is now fine-tunable on their platform, the platform. And then they announced also agents in their platform. So the fine-tuning version of Mistral's API, you can upload, like Matt, you just said, and I think that they are updating weights. You can upload a bunch of data of yours, and then they will host the fine-tuned Mistral Large V2 fine-tuned for your task on their API. I think the pricing, they didn't mention, but I think the pricing stays the same, which is quite incredible. And oh, by the way, they have a native integration with weights and biases. So if you want to see how that fine-tuning process goes, you just need to plug in your weights and biases key. And that's super easy. And everybody should do this. Everybody should have this integration. But then also they announced agents. And very interestingly, and I don't know if this is like a French term or anything, their agents are not agentic. There's no loop in there. What their agents are is like very similar to GPTs or projects in Anthropic, where you or share examples for few-shot prompting, and they pre-save this. And they basically, then you can deploy those agents either via their API, so you can like then talk to, it's kind of like, it's like the fine-tuning without the fine-tuning the Matt you just mentioned also. You can upload like a bunch of few shots, and then they will expose an API input for you, and then you can talk to this model, but fine-tuned for your like few shot examples with a specific system prompt. But again, it's not agentic, at least to this point. They said that in the future, they're working on adding tool use, but right now there's no tool use. And you also can deploy this on their chat platform, and if it's deployed on the chat platform, it's free to use for your team members. Like GPTs in OpenAI, kind of like projects in Anthropic, like similar to this, Mistral now also has, but not super agentic, which is very interesting. It's still in early alpha, it has potential, and OpenAI just shared the thread. Let's do it, folks, let's do it. I think this is it, maybe. AI is it? Breaking news coming at you. No, it's not. Only on ThursdAI. I got excited. OpenAI just shared, we're sharing the GPT-4O system card, end-to-end safety assessment, outlines what we've done to address safety challenges. This is not the strawberry thing, right? No, they just talk about system challenges, 100 red teamers across 45 languages. And I'm reacting in real time. Like I'm seeing this tweet as it comes out.
What? 1 minute heart attack to everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. 1 minute heart attack.
This is not strawberry. Relax, everyone. Breathe. System card focuses on evaluating the novel risks presented GPT-4O audio capabilities, as well as the guardrails we implemented to prevent the generation of harmful, biased, copyright content. We care deeply about the impact of technology. So this is just, for folks who are interested in safety, this is for them. System card is usually pretty cool. We can probably dive in there and see, what they're looking for. So for example, key areas of risk evaluation, they're looking at speaker identification to know who's speaking, sensitive trait attribution, stuff like this. It's pretty cool. We're not gonna like super react like real time unless this is the strawberry stuff. But yeah, they gave us like a super quick heart thing, super quick, but this is not what we were like super expecting to get exactly right now. They do share a bunch of audio stuff. And just to remind you, after they announced the audio interface, the advanced audio interface that we had Cristiano present to us live on show last week, then the whole Scarlett Johansson thing came about, and there were concerns about OpenAI's approach there, and so they're probably releasing some stuff. They said that they're worried about releasing this widely, and they need to test this a little bit more. So this looks like the reason, or I guess this looks like the outcome of that thinking a little bit more before releasing this to everybody else. They have voice generation examples here. They're like a good one or a bad one. And I'm assuming that they're thinking about different like prompt injection techniques that are now useful with voice. Go ahead, LJ. If you want to react to this real time as well, feel free.
Yeah, so this is actually pretty interesting. Right now, I'm on their page, and it seems like they have this type of preparedness framework similar to Anthropic, which I don't think OpenAI has talked about this before, but they give a score of 1 out of 4 for 4 different categories: cybersecurity, biological threats, persuasion, and autonomy. They rank GPT-4O level 1 on all of these, except for persuasion. Apparently, they consider it level 2. And I guess they go into more detail about what is the difference between each level jump in each category.
Yeah. So it looks like
that's gonna be jailbroken as soon as it comes out. They need to do a lot more than 140 languages. They need to just post it to a bunch of schizos on Twitter to actually make it say things.
This is the open source ethos, right? The more open source this is, the harder. This is what Mark Zuckerberg does, right? The more open source this is, the harder it is to break, because there's a bunch of schizos on Twitter trying to break this and then posting it back. So yeah, we're moving on from this breaking news, unless we have some reacting comments, but I don't know if that's like super crazy important right now. Nistan, anything else? Or no? Or we're good? We are good. Okay. I think the last thing that I wanted to mention after Mistral, NVIDIA leak, I don't think we have time to talk about. Character AI, I'll just mention this. Also, there's not like a lot of stuff. This is not this space. You probably heard this in multiple spaces before. Character AI executive buyout. Character AI is the company that does very well. I think they crossed the 300 million web visits, and they're like doing incredibly well. Noam Shazir, the guy behind Attention Is All You Need, in addition to 7 other authors, but he was like the main, looks like he was the main guy there, even though he didn't take the main attribution because he's like a nice person. He then went, after 17 years at Google, he went and founded Character AI, which, if I'm not mistaken, the average use time of this website for many people is like above 35 minutes or something. It does very well. They decided to get acquired, or like they got bought out by Google or acquired by Google. The company still works, but many people left back into Google DeepMind, including Noam. And there's a specific agreement. And for some reason, they also announced that Character AI will pivot to Meta and Llama, and will use Llama for their characters. And for some reason, they didn't say Gemini. And I don't know, maybe a quick reaction from folks from like this announcement and Noam. Anybody want to talk about this, of this acquisition, and why would they choose like Llama? Like, I know why, like Llama is cool, but still, why not Gemini if they're getting bought out by Google?
Well, licensing. Also, there were some statistic on the amount of users of AI companions, like AI girlfriends, AI boyfriends. The largest percentage of paying users, I don't remember whom I heard it from. It was a particular person. I'm not going to mention who, but it was like the vast majority of paying users are older women of these apps, and they're using them a lot. So if you're going to use Gemini for that, you're going to need to. It's probably a lot more safety RLHF than Meta for this type of work. So yeah, whereas with Llama, it's pretty easy to jailbreak and make it like adopt personality. So yeah. I don't know, that's been my experience in the past. I haven't tried the new Gemma, but it's probably just better off at this scroll playing stuff. It might just be bad. Like they need a good product. So.
I think we've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about, besides this one thing that I invited Matt to talk about here. Oh, we also didn't follow up from last week, so Matt, we'll talk, and then we'll see if we have time to last thing. We sometimes talk about tools. We don't often talk about tools, but I really wanted to geek out with Mac about this one tool that many people use. But if you are in the audience and you don't use yet, I really, really want to be the person who tells you about Cursor. If you haven't yet heard about Cursor.sh, it's a VS Code clone. It's a complete clone. So if you download Cursor.sh, I think it's free even, unless you want to pay for it and then get a little bit more. It's a complete VS Code clone to the extent that there's the one button import for all your settings and plugins and everything. And then if you are using Copilot and you're like very happy, yay, I'm programming with AI, Cursor is going to blow your mind, because it's like a way more just like advancements of how an AI integrated into your workflow editing could be. And I think that after a while, everybody who uses Cursor understands that there's no way back to Copilot. Copilot is introduced chat way later than Cursor. So Cursor, you could have chatted about different things. A few things that I used in Cursor before I kind of chat with Matt is that you're able to select like a bunch of code that you have and hit Command K and ask things to happen to this code. And like Cursor will go to Sonnet, and Cursor always, like the folks at Cursor always update to latest best model. You can also go to like Open Router and use DeepSeek if you want, and Gemini. I think you can just select a bunch of code and ask stuff to happen to it, or you can like do things on the whole file. Those are just like some of the things. Now, recently Cursor introduced like a new feature which I haven't played with, and Matt is getting like very excited about. So it's called Composer. Matt, could you maybe tell me about Composer, because I don't know what this is.
Yeah, at a high level, think of it as taking all of the parts of essentially Cursor that you like and stringing them together as an agent. That's at least my read on it. So stringing them together as an agent to actually execute, not just advise. When you're asking Cursor for an edit, aside from doing the Command K, if you're doing Command L and you're asking to chat with it, it's just giving you advice on what you can do to files. Then you can apply it, but you still have to do everything manually. You're like the conductor, but a low-level conductor where you have to do a lot of the groundwork. What Composer does is it takes away a lot of that groundwork. So it doesn't fundamentally change the way that it interacts with your code base from a sort of understanding level, but it changes how it interacts with the code base from an actual interaction perspective. So basically I can say, go and add this feature. It'll go and search through all the files in my code base, figure out exactly which files it needs to edit to make that feature happen. And then it'll say, okay, read through these files and make some edits. It'll go and make those edits in the files, and it'll put it all together. And I just have to click accept at the end, and I can go and test the feature. It's more similar in spirit to something like a Devin than anything else, but it's a little bit nicer in terms of you have your hands in the wheel. With Devin, it's sort of like come back an hour later and we'll see what happens. From my understanding, it could be wrong there. With Composer, it's sort of like a happy medium between the original Cursor design and Devin, where your hands are off the wheel to some extent. You're letting it run and make changes to your files, but you approve everything at the end. You give it feedback in steps. It's not just going, you can add feedback whenever. It's like, here, like, I'm going to stop there. You tell me if this is good or not. Right. And it's pretty awesome. As a sort of test, I was on a plane on Sunday, and I literally just was like, can I build a SaaS app in like 20 minutes? And it did, with Stripe, authentication, everything. It was mind blowing.
Wow.
I will say though, the UX is definitely very early, and understandably, right? It's something very new, and there's no sort of good design pattern for this yet. They're figuring it out. There are a lot of bugs, right? Sometimes it just times out and you're just left hanging and you have to resend the message, but you can't hit a retry. It's a little messy right now, but I think with the current balance of control that it has and the sort of general capabilities of the models today, it's really promising. If models get just a little bit better, I could see it really making a dent in the AI engineering space.
That's incredible. I need to try this, because I opened this up and I didn't really understand that it's multi-file editing as well. Right? It does multiple things, correct?
Yeah, the UI, it honestly took me a few minutes to get used to, and I think with everything else Cursor has done, it just, you get it, seamless. This is the first thing I think they've done where it's, okay, I don't really get this. But once you start picking it up and you figure it out a little bit, I don't even know that I'm using it perfectly right at this point, but still, I think I know enough about it to get a lot done. But the UI is definitely a little clunky and weird today, and hopefully they've got some ideas to iron that out.
But it's really cool, like someone's even innovating in this space, because the traditional UI is just like a human in the loop running the code, and then I think agents are like maybe have linters in between, just make sure the code compiles. I think it's cool that they're doing things like multi-file editing, and I'm pretty curious to see more projects along those lines.
Yeah, I'm very excited, like curious to try it out and see if it actually can do things for me, because even the basic Cursor stuff, just in the side pane, for example, is just quite honestly incredible. What other features of Cursor do you use, Matt, that there are nowhere else?
Yeah, so before that, one of the things I want to mention
I will say that this is not a sponsored anything. I just love Cursor so much that I just want you guys to know about this, so you'll be super productive. This is literally what's happening.
One tip I would just give to anybody using pretty much any of the agentic stuff in Cursor, and this is just a good prompting pattern generally. What I'll do is I'll have it, let's say I'm having it generate a landing page, let's just say. You can apply this technique to pretty much anything, but this is super useful. Let's say we're having it generate a landing page. The first thing I'll do is I'll ask Cursor to generate that landing page, right? Then I will actually open up the Composer and I'll say, okay, you are act as a, I don't know, a design critic, you're Dylan Field of Figma, and you're a world-class designer, and you know everything about design, and this was done by a junior designer. Please critique the hell out of it, be incredibly harsh, and tell me what's wrong with it. It'll go and do that, and then I'll say, okay, what would you do to change that? It'll give me a whole set of changes, and then you actually take those changes back to Cursor and say, go and add these changes, and it'll come out so much better. So it's, for anybody who's going to use it for the first time, that is one of the most useful things you can do with it. For pretty much any other features aside from that are like sort of tab, Copilot, just asking it to critique itself and then asking it to implement those changes makes a world of difference. It's like using a next generation model versus a last generation model. But to your question, the features I use. So the main thing really is, if I'm working in an established code base, the main thing I use is the sort of type ahead. So it's, I believe they call it Cursor Tab, or let me pull it up and see. It's called, Cursor Tab. And it's very similar to GitHub Copilot. It's quite a bit better. It's faster. It's got better context. But the cool thing about it is it does like inline editing, where it can actually fix mistakes in my code backwards, not just forwards. With Copilot, it essentially predicts the next few words or whatever. With Cursor's version, it can actually show a diff for something, and it's hard to explain without showing it visually, so I'm trying my best here. But it can show you like sort of like a diff of a line of code 2 lines back, and you just press tab and it fixes it if there's something wrong. Or I've even noticed if you copy something, let's just say I'm prototyping something and I'm using a hard-coded API, so you don't kill me, right? And I have it copied to my clipboard and I'm going to paste it in. It somehow already knows I have that as soon as I enter the file, and it just puts it there and I just press tab.
I noticed this as well.
They've done some magic here.
It knows the contents of a clipboard and it uses it smartly, which is crazy. And I've definitely noticed as well. I want to add, before we end, Matt, I think that one thing that I often use is that I add the docs feature. You can add documentation to anything by just like giving it a URL. It will go index, scan this, and then you can like add tag in the chat, and you can say anywhere you talk to Cursor, you can like add tag whatever docs. So this new library, FastHTML from Jeremy Howard, for example, wasn't in there, and neither LLM, like no LLMs know about this because it's new. You can still get Cursor to give you like decent output by just like tagging those docs. And all of these models now have long context, and it works really, really well, even for like proprietary stuff, if you're okay with sending those tokens to Anthropic. And also somebody told me over Twitter that you can just like paste links. So if you don't want to do like the whole docs, you can literally just paste a link to the specific doc or a question and answer in Stack Overflow or whatever you want. And this will go and index this in the context of the question. So they'll index and they'll put it in the context and they will answer as well. And then write you the right code for this. So you can send like a PR URL or different things like this. So definitely, if you haven't, after all this, have been convinced to use Cursor, you're beyond our help. But if you haven't tried this, I strongly recommend that you do give it a chance and let us know in the comments. Let me know in the comments if this was something up your alley. Absolutely. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, last note on Cursor for me is it's so damn effective that we actually require everybody on the team to use it. If you don't use it, you're not. Basically, it's if you're using it right. If you're using it wrong, you're getting a probably 2x output. If you're using it right, you're closer to 10x or even more. It basically enables you to do things that you couldn't do previously, and the things that you could do previously, you're going to do significantly faster. So you should be using it if you're coding.
And I think that this is everything that we talked about on ThursdAI for August 8th. It's been compared to previous weeks, it's been a chill week, but still, we talked for 2 hours and 10 minutes, and there's more that I have to talk about here, basically covering last week as well. We also didn't get the strawberry news that potentially we were waiting for, so maybe this will come next on this Thursday. But with that, I want to thank everybody who joined on stage, from Yam and Nistan and LDJ. We had Jun Yang here as well, Matt Schumer and Mark Serafim, all of the folks who help week to week and do an incredible job and like diving deep into the topics. And also everybody who listens to this from week to week, all of you in the audience, new ones who came from Strawberries and decided to stick around and listen to us discuss like very technical things. This ThursdAI is getting released as a podcast and a newsletter. If you're not subscribed, please do. And with that, we'll see you next week. Happy Thursday, everyone. Cheers.